welcome to Carissa Explains It All. I am Carissa, I explain it all, and this is my Diary of an Alchemist series in which I am discussing the last almost 7 years now of emotional healing, inner child work, reparenting, and shadow work. I apologize for the 3-month break from my last chapter, but where we last left off, chapter 9 was about my Kundalini awakening, but in this chapter we're talking about the emotion code. So this is a technique to get in touch with repressed emotions that someone named Dr. Bradley Nelson, I'm looking down because I have my laptop right here, Dr. Bradley Nelson came up with, and just about 7 years ago, this video was posted by him that I watched, and so I decided to try it out. And this video is not going to be about, like, is the emotion code real or not? I am just, this series, the Diary of an Alchemist series, is just me retelling my story from 7 years ago up until now, and we're still in 2019, so this is a ways back. I was just exploring different modalities to get more in touch with, I didn't know what, I was just growing at the time. Now I would call it probably my internal world, just understanding different modalities and techniques and languages to tap into what my subconscious was was telling me, or what was in the subconscious. I really didn't know what I was doing back then. I was just kind of like growing wherever I could and wherever I was curious about. And so the emotion code, essentially what it is it's this process that Dr. Bradley Nelson came up with, and I guess I think he's a holistic physician. Basically, he came up with this technique to get in touch with repressed emotions in our body. And it goes off of this theory that whatever we experienced when we were younger, whatever emotions ran through us, if we did not have resolve, if we didn't know how to move through it, then we didn't know how to process it. And so it just kind of became stored in the body, stored in the subconscious, stored at a somatic level within our bodies, and became trapped emotions or repressed emotions. And the idea behind that is if you have a lot of repressed emotions, that over time, these will develop into ailments that increase in intensity, which then become like the illnesses and the chronic fatigue and the aches that we experience. And so the idea behind this is that if you get in touch with those repressed emotions and release them, that they will no longer be trapped inside the body, and then you can move forward pain-free or illness-free or what have you. So I am really not going to go over the validity of this, just rather what was my experience of it back then, my conclusions of whether I would believe it now or not. I'm just going to go over that real quick. I think that the emotion code, okay, back up. Let's go over the process, like what it is. So the way he teaches it, or at least in this video that I watched back then and that I kind of rewatched right now to refresh my memory, was that essentially you could talk to your body, you could ask it questions. And so he describes it in this video as like standing. You can stand in place and you ask it yes or no questions, and you kind of like sway forward or back, and you're relying on the body's wisdom to tell you what's true and what's not. So you're tapping into your subconscious. Another video I watched at that time 7 years ago was one where he explained you don't actually have to use the full body. You can actually just do like a finger test, like trying to push down on your finger. If it moves, it's a yes. If it doesn't move, it's a no. I know that sounds really hokey to anyone that's like not familiar with energy work or whatever, but like I said, I was just curious. I was open to trying new things, new modalities. And essentially, so the idea is like you ask it yes, no questions, and he has this chart graph. I think I'll throw it up on the screen right here so you can kind of see it. There's like a column A and a column B, and you're asking it, does the trapped emotion reside in the body parts in column A versus column B, and then what line within those columns, and then in particular which body part or what emotion are we talking about. And then the idea is that once you have like pinpointed which trapped emotion it is and where it is in the body, you can then release it using a system that he has. It's not really a system, but like in this video, he describes it as like 3 fingers, and you kind of run it from this, there's like a meridian that runs from your forehead down through your back, and you can like clear it, like kind of like a credit card swipe, by doing it like 3 times. Other things, like I went to Reddit just to kind of see like what were people's opinions back then versus now versus whatever. And some people were saying you could use anything. You could use a taco shell, you could use a feather, whatever. And then other people are like, no, you have to use a magnet. That's the whole point. So there's like dissenting opinions on like how you're supposed to do this. So my perspective back then was like, that doesn't seem like that would work. I'm sure there's a little bit of energy work if you're trained in Reiki and energy healing and you're intentional about energy pulling, an energy pushing, like that perhaps using your fingers you could clear something because you are intentionally moving the energy. But for the average layperson who has no idea how the hell to move their energy or do anything, I think just doing this isn't going to do shit. And I think for the people who did, maybe it's that placebo effect, which I think is real too. You know, like I think we can believe ourselves into releasing. But I also think that trapped emotions are something stored in the subconscious, and even if you were to release that energy, maybe you have like, and maybe somehow some energy practitioner or yourself with enough attention, you could release that energy. The thing is, whatever we experienced back then that was traumatic to our nervous system, like negatively affected our emotions, our feelings, our perspective in the world. We built systems of being in the world through our behaviors and ways of thinking, ways of talking, perspectives, just everything about ourselves has now been built around that. And so you may release that trapped emotion right now, but we're always having energy come through our bodies. Like we're always receiving new energy, and that's going to filter through your patterns of belief and being and thinking and speaking. And so once again, I think they'll just become trapped until you energetically release it again. And you can keep doing that and maybe doing that over and over and over again for weeks, months, years, whatever. You could eventually totally release it. But that just didn't make sense to me at that time. And to me, so at that time I used it to get in touch with the repressed emotions. I was like, I don't even know what emotions are repressed in there, and I don't quite have a language to speak with the subconscious yet. I wasn't thinking like that, but that's me now narrating what was happening back then. So I was like, I'll use anything. And I think that the emotion code, just like any other form of divination, is a way to tap into the intuitive, the more subtle energies of the universe, of yourself. And so this one was a way to tap into the subtle energy within my body, within the energy in my body. But I could have also used like a pendulum or tarot cards or astrology or palmistry or whatever you want, or the leaves outside on the ground, you know, whatever code or system to help me tap into those emotions. Whatever, it's just tapping into this like more subtle energy, this intuitive energy. And so I think that's what was happening. I don't know that this process itself is the way to do this, but it was the most accessible avenue for me to access what could possibly be my repressed emotions at that time. And to be honest, I probably had repressed emotions in every single emotion in like all kinds of body parts. So at the time I was thinking I was getting to the parts that were repressed, the body parts, the energies. And I found what I wrote in my diary, and what we'll go over in this video and probably the next one, is the 9 specific emotions that were trapped. And I thought that these were the 9 trapped ones. And they were probably big core themes within my life and probably within a lot of people's lives. But for me, it was like, at that time, I was like, these are the ones. And once I release them, I'll be, I don't know what I was expecting. Healed, better, more powerful, more able to do YouTube. I don't know. But you know what? It worked to move me forward on that path at that time. And that's really all you need systems for. Like, systems don't have to be the one or the one that works for everyone. It just has to be what works for you to move you forward. So we'll go over now kind of what I was doing at that time. Like I said, I really didn't believe in the passing the fingers over. I did try it, but I was like, I don't think that did anything. So I used a combination of other methods that I was using. So I used this chart system because like I said, I could use a divinatory system like reading the leaves outside, but I don't know what the leaves mean. I haven't created a system for that. Tarot cards has a system, but then you have to learn the system first. So this was just really accessible to me because he had made a chart. I could say yes, no, pinpoint a area of the body, but I also don't know that you couldn't just make up your own chart. You know, like I don't know enough about the method. But yeah. So anyways, let's get into what I was experiencing at that time. It's just kind of funny that it's cool the methodologies that people come up with. I think to mistake them as the path, the one way, this works and it'll work for everyone. I mean, it depends on your level of belief, right? And it depends on how open you are to it. It depends on where you're at in your journey. I think if I tried to do this now, I don't know that there are other avenues now that are much easier for me to tap into subconsciously what's going on than to use someone else's method, right? So this was just a stepping stone. And so yeah, that's why I'm like, I'm not going to pass judgment on it, maybe I did in what I've already talked about. I don't really feel like it was judgment. It was just kind of like exploring the ideas, but like, it is what it is. It's, yeah. Okay, so this is like February 13th of 2019 is where we're at. We're using this journal here. I watched, so I found his video originally on Gaia, and Gaia is like, I always tell people, it's like the Netflix for spirituality and like really weird, like out there beliefs. There's been some great things that I found on it, and there's been some hokey things, and you know, you believe what you want to believe. I don't really care. But anyways, I watched a video on Gaia called The Emotion Code. And then I must have looked him up on YouTube. So then I started using his technique called the testing technique, and it uses muscles and subconscious to find out if I have trapped emotions. Okay, so the first trapped emotion is discouragement. So I must have been using this testing technique, using my finger and like whether it would go down or not. And asking it in regards to the chart about what trapped emotion it was. So I asked if I should know any more information before releasing it. It said yes. I asked about age. It said no. So you can ask it like different questions like, was there a certain age that I was when this first appeared? And sometimes it's relevant, sometimes not. Like I said, I'm not really like talking about the validity of this technique as much as my journey at the time. And this is what I was experiencing. And yeah, just relaying that experience. I asked, should I know which parent it came from? It said yes. And these questions were set up by Dr. Bradley Nelson. So this was not really my questions. These were the questions that I was learning to ask. It said yes. It said it was one of my parents. And I struggle with talking about my parents on here because they are well-meaning people. I know they love me. There's just so much in it, right? And so I don't want to say anything bad. So I tend to be vague when I talk about them, and I'm going to keep it at that until I know better how to address it. So it doesn't, I said, was it one of my parents? It said yes. It said, doesn't need me to know anything else. And I wrote pain unhealed gets transmitted. So the same idea is like hurt people. So just pain that we have not dealt with, we then pass it on to whoever we're in relationships with, because we have not healed it within ourselves. And so it usually triggers something in someone else. And we then repeat this loop of behavior in our relationships. I asked where it was lodged, this emotion, this trapped emotions. It said in my lungs or my airways. Okay, so then I was like, okay, the second trapped emotion. And I went through again, asking it questions. Second trapped emotion appears to be effort unreceived. And I think this is in the chart. So that's such a weird thing, effort unreceived, but it was in the chart. I said, this type of energy work isn't really feeling good. I feel a little bit chaotic, like maybe I'm tackling a bit too much. I want to keep going to finish it, but I feel drained and like I'm hitting a wall, as in notable to communicate with my subconscious. I don't think I should keep going tonight with releasing trapped emotions. I said, I feel a bit lethargic and chaotic, like I have personal inner turmoil that I want to figure out and resolve. I also feel like my external world isn't lined up right, and I'm confused about what to do next. I know that now is not the time for that. The internal world peace will reflect outwardly. I don't know. My internal peace will reflect outwardly. And so the fact that I was seeing everything as chaotic maybe means that I am feeling chaotic inside. Like I was exploring the idea of law of attraction as the law of mirroring. So whatever's going on within me, I'm seeing it reflected in my external world, and I can use that as like a reminder, a reflection of confirmation of what reality I'm experiencing. Okay, so I want to go over that really quickly, that with any kind of energy work, regardless of what modality you're using or not using, if you're not using anything, energy work takes a lot more energy than you think it does, because you're not really doing anything. You don't really move. It's all just kind of mental, but like moving emotion through your body takes energy more so than we would think. So I just want to put that out there, that like anything that you're doing, be gentle with yourself, be kind. My mind tends to work so much faster than my body, my energy. So I can burn myself out really easily by focusing and fixating on something for like 12, 16 hours, 5 days in a row. Just I can go like hyper focused and fixated with my mind. And I'm like, I'm great. I'm fine. I'm doing great. I'm making progress. And the rest of me is just like, please stop. We need rest. We need food. We need sleep. We need to be taken care of. And for so much of my life, I let my mind guide the way and like drag my body and my feelings behind. And so I've had to really learn in the last several years to bring them all into balance, and that my mind, my soul, my emotions, and my body matter just as much as my mind, and they need rest and they need to be nourished as well, not just my mind. So so at the time, it was really, really hard to let go of that, because I really just enjoyed working through things and hyperfixating on the healing and the releasing and the letting go and the learning and the growing and experiencing new things. You know, I feel like I am an adventurer when it comes to ideas and exploring what you can do with your mind and like your soul and like energy work. Just in the way that a lot of people are like adventurers and like they go off and like explore caves or go spelunking or like climb mountains and stuff. And I'm just like, hell no, I would never do that stuff. That sounds exhausting and not fun at all. And so it's just my brand of like pushing to the extreme, right? It's just, those are the realms of where I like exploring. So at this time, in 2019, it was really hard to let go of that and be like, I should really take a rest, because I was like, why? My mind matters the most, right? This other stuff is just like baggage. It's like it's so terrible to think of, but I was like, it's holding me back, right? But I had to learn to put this aside. And so I really tangented off and just now. But what I wanted to say with that is that just pay attention to meeting your needs, your physical needs, and making sure you're getting enough rest and food and soul nourishment and community, connection with friends. Get outside of your head, get outside of your home, even if it's just for a walk around your neighborhood. You can do it at night when people aren't watching. Like, just, I'm not trying to get into advisory mode, but just like, if I could advise her to do one thing, it'd be like connect to everything else in life besides your mind, just for a couple hours, if not like a day or two, and then you can come back, and I promise the energy will still be there and the desire to keep working through it will still be there. But it's okay to take a rest and take a break. So that's what I would advise her now. But anyways, so she worked through those two. She kind of, and then I mean me in the past 2019 version of me. So she knew that there were 9 emotions. I guess I had asked, how many trapped emotions there were. I got the answer of 9. I had worked through 2, and then I was now going to detail the rest of them. I'll go through them really quick because, again, I don't want these videos to be super long. I am trying to be more consciously aware of like respecting people's time and watch time, and like these videos don't need to go on 40 minutes, right? So we're at like 20 minutes now. So just briefly, I'm going to touch on the other 6 trapped emotions and what they were, just so that we have something to go off of in like 2 chapters from now when I talk about like the round table trance meditation. So the 4th one was the feeling of being unwanted and just kind of like feeling like a burden, kind of just feeling like I am not wanted by the people in my life. So dealing with that feeling came up as a repressed emotion. The 5th one was the feeling of not being able to escape death. This was kind of like triggered by like real life events. I had a coworker who brought up the Final Destination movie series, and that movie series just really just does something to my psyche. It just feels so uncomfortable. I mean, obviously, right? Like, it's the inevitability of death. Like, death is, like, if you're marked for death, death is coming for you. And that kind of feeling just hit, like, it struck an existential chord of, like, fear within me. And there's, like, 2 other series that do the same thing. The Haunting of the Bly Manor, or something like that. That one was such a good series, but I had massive like nightmares, like heart palpitations, sweating kind of nightmares that brought up this existential like dread of like death is coming for you kind of thing, and it's like unescapable. And then the movie Descent, which I hated, and also brought up this feeling. And Descent is like a group of women go like spelunking in a cave, like go to explore a cave, and like not gonna spoil it for you, but it's the same premise, like the inevitability of death, and that's just like terrifying to me. So that was coming up for me at the time. I think everybody has that fear. I think being a human being, being a mortal being, we probably all have that existential fear like deep in the root core of us, right? So that's not anything unique to me, but it was coming up for me to look at and examine, right? And to release. Not that I think we ever release it, but I think we can get more comfortable, like not let it bother us so much, right? We don't have to, but like that's what I was going through at the time. Another emotion was the feeling of separation, feeling separate from other people. This was really like harkening back to junior high time. Like elementary school was so much fun, and just like everyone's playing and learning, and you're just having fun, right? And all of a sudden you get to junior high and it's all about being cool. And I was in junior high right about 2001. So Y2K fashion, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, like the start of, I think, Paris Hilton and all that. That might have been like a few years later, but like just the idea of like you have to look a certain way, you have to have the right shoes, you have to have the right hair, you have to listen to the right music. That was such a thing. It's not really a thing anymore, which amazing, great. I mean, there's a social media pressure that I did not have being in junior high in 2001, but this idea of like being able to dress however you want, express yourself, not needing to fit in that way, like there's no way. That just was not how things worked when I was in junior high. And so to feel that acute pressure of like either you're in and you're like everybody else or you're out, it was this like feeling of separation. Like you could be a total outcast if you don't do as we say or don't behave a certain way. And that was just so confusing and so alienating for me. So anyways, I was dealing with that feeling. Another feeling was this emotion of grief. I had actually just had a dream. This was February 17th of 2019. I had had a dream that I was staying in a hotel room and there were ghosts on the bed. And I met someone in the lobby who told me that you can get rid of the ghosts. Like you can not exercise, but like you can help, like in movies, like fictional movies too, like just helping people move on to the afterlife. Ghosts just move on, like find peace and move on. So essentially that's kind of like what my subconscious was feeling like I was doing with these trapped emotions, is like putting, like what I needed to do was go back to the hotel room where the ghosts were laying in the bed and lay in the bed on top of them, like understand what they felt in their life and like exhume is not the right word, I think, but just like let that energy release. And I think that's what I was doing with releasing the old emotions. You can almost think of them as like ghosts of your past, and like you're understanding them. You're like giving them the validation of like what they experienced and the pain that they experienced, and it's okay and I love you anyways, and then they feel peace and then they can move on to the afterlife, right? I think that's kind of my subconscious was relating the two and being like, this is like what it is, this is what I'm doing. So that's the imagery it was giving me in the dream. And so the trapped emotion that I came to decide upon when I woke up was this emotion of grief, understanding the grief of like I went through this and it was traumatic or it was hurtful or it was painful, and I can grieve it, and grieving is normal and it's okay, and it helps us to then move on to the afterlife, move on to the next stage of life, move on to whatever else, right? Like we can move forward once we've allowed the grief to the grief is like going through the pain and like allowing it to just be and exist. And there's sadness there, and that's just it. That's just like part of that tunnel of like moving through something. So that was the 7th one. The 8th trapped emotion. The 8th trapped emotion was about not wanting to go on this journey. I was very surprised. It baffled my mind that any part of me that might not want to go on this journey. So there's a part of me that resisted doing this, the going through the repressed emotions. It was like, I don't want to do this. This is hard. It's painful. I just don't want to do it. There was a part of me that was resistant to it. And so that was interesting, coming to realize that there could be a part of me that wanted things other than what I thought I wanted. So that was the 8th one. And then the 9th one I just wrote could be the ego. And the ego is so massive. My definition of the ego is so very different now than my understanding of it back in 2019. But we could call this like the ego aspect that I was becoming aware of. Wanting to appear smart or like I had the answers. That was a big part of the ego. It still is a big part of my ego. I think I have most recently come to realize this perfected persona, the chasing of perfection, that I'll have the right thing to say, I'll know all the answers, coming across like I know what I'm talking about, having the right words to say, trying to script everything so that I say the appropriate things on camera, even like my background, trying to like update it every single time, just improve the audio, the visuals, whatever. I think that I enjoy excelling at life, at being me and being the best version of me. But unfortunately, that is coupled with this perfectionist aspect of ego, where it's like, well, it's never enough. You'll never be enough to get approval or whatever. And so this last summer, I went through a lot of that, of becoming aware of this deep shame of just being myself, and like, no one's going to want that, right? Those feelings of separation and feeling unwanted and all that stuff, and like releasing and letting that go. So that's still very much a part of my ego. It's just kind of developed, and my relationship with it has developed and changed and shifted over the years. And my ability to talk about it, like back then I could not have talked about that with anybody else. Just couldn't. It would have been so painful. And now here I am just like talking about it like just casually, like as if I'm talking about the movie I watched last week, you know? But that was a big part of it then. I remember that needing to appear smart or like I have all the answers, and that reflected in my workplace and my persona in the workplace, and just so much. So I was becoming aware that, this is a part of my ego. This isn't my identity. This isn't all of who I am. And maybe I don't need to do those things. Maybe I don't need to make it look like I have all the answers all the time. And so I was learning to release, I was learning that this might be a repressed aspect of me, or some kind of emotion in there. It could be the ego. I don't know. I guess I was becoming aware of repressed emotions as well as repressed aspects. So last journal entry, a couple days later, February 23rd of 2019, I was just feeling really, really resistant to dealing with any of these emotions. Here I just done all these things to uncover and to become aware of them, and now I was like, I don't want to touch it. I just don't want to be around it. And I feel like this is a very normal, natural part of healing, is, you know, like whatever resistance we had that was stopping us from dealing with them in the first place, it's still there. And so once you start to uncover it, like at first it's kind of exciting, like, oh, I'm making progress and I'm moving forward and I'm becoming aware of things. But as the pain comes up, the part of you that was like keeping a lid on it in the first place is like, why are we doing this? Like, it's the protective aspect. So it's like coming back to take over and be like, yeah, we're gonna take care of you now. I don't know why you did that, and like unearthed all this stuff that was super uncomfortable, but like, let me do my job and like cover that back up and push it aside and not deal with it, because this is really painful. Like, there's a reason why we weren't dealing with it. And so I think it's normal to fluctuate and have these ups and downs of like, I'm feeling really good, I'm feeling like addressing all these things and healing, and then feeling down and low. And it could be a myriad of reasons. Maybe you're not sleeping well, maybe you're not eating well, maybe you are totally well rested and nourished, but the resistant part of you just needs some space and time, right? Like, it's just like having a fight with someone, and like maybe they're not ready to like resolve the argument with you right away. Maybe they just need time, like a few days to go by and things to to normalize with these big feelings that are coming up. And then maybe they'll feel ready to resolve things with you. And so I think that's a normal part of healing with ourselves too. We're in relationship with ourselves. We're learning to have a relationship with ourselves. And so that means giving ourselves the time and the space to sit with difficult things and to not address them if we don't feel ready to address them. And it doesn't mean, you know, there's a fear that always came up for me, like, oh, that means if I don't address it right now, it'll never be addressed. And that's not the case. Like, it's okay to let go for a little while and then come back when you're ready. And so I think I was sensing that and allowing myself to feel that. I was like, I feel like there are parts of me that are like, why aren't you paying attention to and dealing with me? But I was like, but my perception matters too. And I feel like those are these are big fractured pieces and trapped emotions. And I just feel like I'm dealing with them is such a big next step. So I'm hesitating, even though I'm really excited for growth and want it more than anything. I realize that not all parts of me are on board with that, because at times it can be painful. And I'm so glad that I came to that realization, because otherwise to bulldoze yourself and push forward anyways does more harm. Right? Because you're trying to heal and integrate many aspects. If there's a part of you that doesn't want this and you're trying to push them to want it, you're not really listening to their side of the story either, right? Like, so we need to listen to all parts and make sure that we're all on board before moving forward. And so sometimes that just looks like self-care through that until you're ready. So the next chapter will be about Conscious Life Expo, which is like this big spiritual event that takes place in LA every year. It's just tons and tons of vendors selling their spiritual wares, some not so spiritual wares that are more commercial goods. And then a bunch of speakers are booked, so you can go listen to these different speakers. And so Teal Swan was one of them. So I was very excited, because I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually go see this person that I'd been watching videos of on YouTube for a long time, like 5 months. Yeah, so I'll get into that in the next video. But anyways, thanks for watching. This was chapter 10 of my Diary of an Alchemist series, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Bye.